a very, very important topic that we are going to be discussing this afternoon. For anyone who is just joining us, I am Adelle Nazarian. I am a media fellow at the Gold Institute for International Strategy. And today's topic is going to be focused on an issue that many of you may or may not have heard of, but it's something that's extremely important and needs to receive much more attention. And everyone who is here today has played some role or part in helping to expose this further and to hopefully fight against this atrocity. So recently, the United Kingdom imposed sanctions on a seminary and clerics associated with it in Pakistan who are involved with carrying out the kidnapping and forced conversion of underage girls from religious minority communities. This issue, of course, has international implications, including in the US. And this is a very important topic because we're hoping today to be able to host a discussion that will help to further expose this issue, and also how the State Department and how everyone here today should be able to act upon helping to hopefully bring it to an end. Of course, grooming and the forced, conversion of anyone from a different faith that differs from your own. It's a major, major issue, and trustfully, today will also help to further educate people about what's going on, and you can get active and get involved in your own way. I'm going to start by reading off brief introductions to all of our speakers for the day. I'll go in chronological order, beginning with Utsav Chakrabarti, who is the executive director of HinduPACT. Utsav is an architect by profession, and he has been presenting the case of Hindu and other subaltern communities to thought leaders in Washington, D.C. for nearly 20 years, for over 18 years. An astute observer of geopolitics and geopolitical trends inside the Washington Beltway, his works have been presented to lawmakers at the Capitol Hill and representatives of the Human Rights Commission at the UN. He's also been published in various publications that are very well read by the DC Beltway. I've seen them myself. Next, we have Noor Dahri. He is the founder and executive director of the Islamic Theology of Counterterrorism. And it's called ITCT. He's currently gathering research for his next book, also on Israeli security threats. And he travels often to the tense borders with Gaza, Syria, and Lebanon. And details of his trip, including visits to the Temple Mount, the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, and the Western Wall, have made massive waves on social media. And he's been a strong advocate for helping fix the perception of Muslims throughout the world, who are often seen in a particularly negative light. And so thank you also for being with us today. Next, we have Deepti Mahajan, the director of the Chingari project. It is a project of HinduPACT as well. Deepti is a social activist with a master's in human resources management from Rutgers University in New Jersey, and has been working in the US corporate world since the last 17 years. She is currently the project director for the Coalition for Hindu Girls and Their Rights, which is the acronym Chingari. And just want to add that Chingari is a social justice campaign aimed towards bringing awareness to Hindus across the globe about the atrocities that young innocent Hindu girls face in Sindh, Pakistan each day. Through informative advocacy, they seek to make their local U.S. representatives aware of the unstable religious situation in Pakistan and take further action to convey their disapproval. She's one of the foremost experts, of course, in today's subject matter. Next, we have Dr. Christine Sequinzia, who is the principal at Oliva International. Dr. Sequenzia has her Master's of Divinity, and she is the co-chair of the IRF Global Campaign to eliminate blasphemy and apostasy laws. She's an experienced government affairs and biblical justice professional, an advocate and a public speaker who has traveled internationally to serve the oppressed. She spent over a decade working and writing for members of the US Congress, international nonprofit organizations, and private publications. She has also been profiled in The Hill, CQ Today, CQ Weekly, Politico, and CBN. She holds a Divinities minor and Master's of Divinity in International Development and Urban Studies from Florida Theological Seminary, along with a bachelor's degree from Texas A&M University. So with that said, I know that all of our guests cannot stay for the duration. I'm going to open up the floor to 5-minute introductions now. Christine, I would like to let you go first because I know you're in a little bit of a constraint for time. So please go ahead with your opening remarks.
Well, thank you so much. And as you know, I also work as policy director for the National Association of Evangelicals, and we've got a couple of things that Congress is working on in the final days here. So thank you for just allowing me to come in and leave quickly. Basically, on behalf of the International Religious Freedom Campaign to eliminate blasphemy and apostasy laws, I would like to thank the Gold Institute for hosting this conversation on forced conversion and marriage of girls in Pakistan, and for your deep commitment to freedom of religion for all of humankind, including for persecuted minority religious communities around the world. As you said, I'm Dr. Christine Sequinzia, co-chair of the IRF campaign, but also principal and founder of Oliva International, where we advance human rights through advocacy and legislative and executive branch work with the United States government, obviously, and the United Nations. Personally, it is my faith as a Christian that compels me to recognize all people as made in the image of God and work fervently for their right to believe and speak freely in a way that builds resilient, pluralistic communities. This was never more true to me than when I witnessed displaced Iraqi Christians serving Syrian Muslim refugees inside of a tiny church in the Middle East. In his own words, Jesus Christ himself said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives and to set at liberty those who are oppressed." We find that in Luke's Gospel 4:18. So today we're gathered here to discuss forced conversion and marriage of both Christian and Hindu minority groups within a Muslim majority country of Pakistan. Global news media has reported story after story of underage girls being forced or coerced into marriage with men sometimes twice their age, whom are already married with children. To add to this violation, the girls who hail from an oppressed and devastated areas like Christian slums or Hindu minority town of Sindh are also forced to denounce their personal faith and required to convert to Islam and begin reciting Quranic scriptures as reported by the BBC. Despite the valiant efforts of some local Pakistani lawmakers, powerful Islam clerics, seminaries, and particular madrasas are working together to forcibly violate the very dignity of these Christian, Hindu, or Sikh girls to choose their faith or life partner, rendering them basically modern-day slaves without freedom of religion or belief. According to the United States State Department 2021 report on international religious freedom, the total population of Pakistan is estimated to be 240 million about. According to the result of the most recent national census conducted in 2017, 96% of the population is Sunni or Shia Muslim. According to government figures, the remaining 4% include Ahmadi Muslims, Hindus, Christians, including Roman Catholics, Anglicans, and Protestants, among others. So as you can tell, 4% doesn't have a chance in the majority, 96%. To that end, the United States State Department also relisted Pakistan as a country of particular concern on November 30th, 2022, alongside egregious human rights violators like Saudi Arabia, Russia, and the People's Republic of China. While Pakistan's constitution establishes Islam as a state's religion, it states, subject to law, public order, and morality, every citizen shall have the right to profess, practice, and propagate his religion. I don't know why it says his. I wish it said his and hers. According to the Constitution, every citizen has the right to freedom of speech subject to reasonable restrictions in the interest of the glory of Islam, as stipulated by the Penal Code. According to the Penal Code, the punishments for persons convicted of blasphemy include death, for defiling the Prophet Muhammad, life imprisonment, defiling, damage, or desecrating the Quran, and up to 10 years imprisonment for insulting another's religious feelings. Speech or action intended to incite religious hatred is punishable by up to 7 years imprisonment. However, for Hindu sisters Reena and Ravina from Sindh, the valiant words of Pakistan's constitution did not hold true, as they were violently forced to become second and third wives to Muslim men, forced to denounce their faith. In this particular case, the girl's father has shared that the girls were taken from his home at gunpoint and since has fought for their release through the court system. But much to the dismay of the international human rights community, including the International Religious Freedom Roundtable and Secretariat, the girls were not released, as the only issue at play was in their legal case revolved around whether or not the girls were of legal age to consent to marry. After a forensic evaluation, which I assume also was devastating and re-traumatizing to the girls, to determine their age, the case was closed, leaving a father wailing for the release of his daughters by violent Muslim pedophiles and 2 girls grasping to survive a life of torture, sex abuse, and psychological warfare. As for me, I'm a survivor of multiple forms of abuse myself, and I identify deeply with the pain the girls endured, being trapped inside a home where their very dignity, mental stability, and agency were desecrated in the name of sick, sadistic pleasure. The girls deserve more. They and all other at-risk minority girls deserve the whole force of the global community to cry out in unison for their release and the immediate and full, authentic attention of the Pakistani government to uphold religious liberties, in addition to repealing the death penalty for blasphemy and apostasy charges. I'd like to talk a little bit about A and B laws and what we're doing at the campaign to stop that. Do I have time to do that today, or would you like me to close now?
If you can give 2 minutes, that'll be great, because we would, or if you can stay a little bit longer, I have some questions, but okay. 2 minutes.
Great. So we at the IRF Global Campaign to eliminate blasphemy and apostasy laws are encouraged by the recent sanctions of the UK foreign minister to place a travel ban and asset freeze on Mian Abdul Haq, a Muslim cleric from the Sharif Shrine in Gotak, Sindh, who is responsible for the forced marriages and forced religious conversions of non-Muslim minors. Specifically, our committee addresses apostasy, which is leaving a religion or belief, and blasphemy, which is the insult of a religion, its objects, or its places. As stated by the US State Department Ambassador at Large Rashad Hussain, such laws limit individuals' rights to express and practice their faith and empower extremists to take the law into their own hands and employ violence extrajudicially, which is, I feel like, what we're seeing with these girls that we're talking about today. We believe it is critically important to urge Afghanistan, Iran, Malaysia, Maldives, Nigeria, Mauritania, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Yemen to repeal the death penalty for apostasy. And we urge a similar repeal for blasphemy charges in Afghanistan, Iran, Mauritania, Nigeria, Pakistan, Somalia, and Saudi Arabia. The committee itself has endorsed legislation like resolutions passed by Chairman Raskin and Senator Lankford urging the repeal of blasphemy and apostasy laws. We have hosted briefings at the United Nations and the US Congress on the topic, and also have been advocating for specific freedom of religion or belief language to be embedded during the 77th Annual United Nations General Assembly over the past few months. The committee has created a charter calling for an end to extrajudicial killings for apostasy and blasphemy laws, which you all might sign by visiting nae.org/takeaction. So on Friday, the 10th of November, the United Nations General Assembly Third Committee voted in favor of 2 UNGA resolutions with language to protect individuals threatened with death via apostasy or blasphemy laws. The General Assembly is the UN's most representative body, comprising 193 member states. And on Friday, the 10th of November, 131, which is over 2/3 of the member states, voted in favor of the extrajudicial summary or arbitrary executions resolution, and 126 countries voted in favor of the moratorium on the death penalty resolution, including new language that advocated for the global for freedom of religion or belief, which we were really excited about. The coalition of Sorry?
Wonderful.
Oh yeah, we were really excited. The coalition of individuals and organizations signed a joint charter released 2nd of August for the International Day victims of violence based on religion or belief to ensure the death penalty is never applied for apostasy and blasphemy, calling on UN member states to embed language in the resolutions. So here's the kicker. Even where the death sentence is not carried out, it is usually justifying the in commando detention, physical and psychological torture, denial and legal representation and medical care, and prolonged detention, often until death, of individuals on grounds of their religion or belief. States also carry out executions outside the judicial process or rely on other non-state actors to execute with impunity. So in summary, I would just like to point you to nae.org/take action, where you or your organizations or as individuals can sign on to that charter to help us raise awareness and continue to beat the drum on this issue. We can't repeal blasphemy and apostasy laws at one time. We can't solve all of the global crises or save all of these minority groups at once. But one step forward, we believe at the committee, the Global Campaign to Eliminate Blasphemy and Apostasy Laws, is to start with the death penalty. And that's calling on 11 Organization of Islamic countries that I listed off earlier to repeal the death penalty and apostasy. So
That's
thank you
great.
for your time.
Thank you so much. And this is a great place to start. And so thank you for everything you're doing. And we'll definitely have to speak about ways to work together on other projects to help hopefully make that come to fruition. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Sequenzia. And now I'm going to allow for Deepti Mahajan to make a 5-minute introduction. And the reason, by the way, that introduction went a little bit longer was because she's not able to stay with us throughout the duration of the program. So Deepti, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Adele.
Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, very clearly.
I would like to thank World Institute, first of all, to allow me to talk about this important topic and introduce Chingari. Chingari stands for Coalition for Hindu Girls Abducted and Their Rights. As you said, Adele, earlier, it's a social justice campaign for raising awareness across the globe about the atrocities that young, innocent Hindu and other minorities girls face in Sindh, Pakistan, every day. Through informative advocacy, we at Chingari, we seek to make our local representatives aware of the unstable religious situation in Pakistan, and they may be able to take further action to convey disapproval of the situation. Even after 75 years of Pakistan being independent, one of the most heartrending issues its religious minorities face is the abductions, forced conversions, and forced marriages of girls and women from minority communities. This continuous and steady increase in such cases, it has made this practice a national and international tragedy. Yet successive governments in Pakistan have failed to take any effective action to prevent this tragic and inhuman practice. The cases of Christian, Hindu, and other minority girls that we're talking about is between the ages of 12 to 25, and they're abducted, converted to Islam, and immediately married to their abductors. And this is rampant in Sindh area of Pakistan. Provisional estimates in a study, forced marriages and forced conversions in the Christian community of Pakistan, suggest that up to 1,000 religious minority women and girls face this fate every year. However, the actual or the true numbers will never be ascertained. And most of these cases are centered on the Dargah Barchundi Sharif Seminary, where Mia Abdul Haq, known as Mia Mitu, as Christine just mentioned, and he runs a forced conversion factory with girls and young women vanishing from their homes, marrying and converting virtually overnight, and kept away from their families, and often by court orders with the backing of Mia Mitu, of course. The groups most affected by these issues are pre-adolescent Hindu, Sikh, and Christian girls. Many of these girls are violently abducted from their homes, snatched away from their parents. They're forced to converting to Islam, thrown into abusive marriages with older men, and finally blackmailed into giving a statement of consent over videos. Fake documentation such as birth certificates are produced to falsely show they are consenting adults to the marriage and conversion. They are not allowed to see their families again, and very few escape to live and tell their stories. All these cases meet with impunity, and usually after the abduction, the victims' relatives plead with the local police to file a complaint, file an FIR. The police are usually reluctant, or they fail to investigate the cases properly. Instead, after a few days, parents are handed over conversion certificates, marriage certificates, and told the girls has voluntarily converted to Islam, married, and they are living with their new husbands. In court, the issue is often portrayed as a religious issue, of course, and the perpetrators' lawyers appeal to the religious sentiments of the judges by suggesting that the girls did that voluntarily. And majority of these cases, of course, the decisions go in favor of the perpetrators, and the girls lose all contact with their families. The trauma these girls go through is unimaginable. In Pakistan, the government is known for tolerating honor killings, sexual violence, and blatant denial of basic human rights to non-Muslims. Yet, surprisingly, Pakistan holds a seat at the UN Commission for Human Rights. Pakistan's government officials continue to suppress gender inequality and religious freedom, contrary to the human rights that they claim to protect in multiple international treaties. I have a few very important dates here. In June 22, Pakistan was labeled as the country of particular concern by the US State Department for the 5th straight year for its systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom against its religious minorities, including Hindus, Sikhs, Christians, Ahmadiyya Muslims, and Shia Muslims. On August 13th, 2022, Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan admitted that forced conversions of young non-Muslim girls are carried out in the country. On October 15th, 2022, US President Joe Biden named Pakistan as the most dangerous nation in the world. And on December 9th, 2022, the UK government sanctioned the Muslim cleric Mia Mittu that we've been talking about. And Britain says that he is responsible for forced conversions and marriages of girls and women from religious minorities. And UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly designated Mia Mittu as a leader and caretaker of, who is the leader of and caretaker of Barchundi Sharif under the global human rights sanction regime, stating that he is responsible for forced marriages and forced religious conversions of non-Muslims and minors. Child marriage, forced conversion, abduction, sexual violence violate any individual's human rights and eliminates any sense of control they have over their own life and decisions. The effect of these horrific actions traumatize these victims, hindering their ability to foster any positive relationships or pursue their goals, live a fulfilling life. At Chingari, we imagine a world where every little girl, regardless of their faith, can live up to full potential. As we speak, this month itself, a girl named Shanila, a Hindu girl, was forcefully converted to Islam by Mia Mittu. Last month in the news was the case of 16-year-old Chanda Mehraj, who was abducted due to international, and because there was so much outrage internationally, she was rescued, she was kept in a safe house, but she was handed over back to her abductors instead of her parents. Her whereabouts are still unknown. We have hundreds and thousands of these cases that can be either Googled or you can see them on Chingari tweets. With our efforts, yes.
Sorry, in the interest of time, Deepti, this is wonderful. I just want to direct everyone to the website for Chingari. It's www.HinduPACT.org/Chingari, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And are you completed with your remarks? I'd like to get to a few more guests before we open this to questions.
Yeah, okay. Just 2 sentences that what we are doing at Chingari is
absolutely
we are trying to educate the US lawmakers and corporations doing business with Pakistan so that there can be implementation of conditions on funding allocated from the US government that we give in foreign aid to the state of Pakistan. So that's what we are doing at Chingari. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your work for this, giving attention to this very important topic. Next, I would like to go to Mr. Nurdahri.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks to Gold Institute for inviting me on this such a great event. Yes, there's a big problem in Pakistan, this forced conversion, and this is not a new, it's ongoing for decades, unfortunately. And Hindus conversion, mostly of the Hindus, 75%, I think, more than nearly 85% Hindus live in the province of Sindh, because this is religiously holy land for the Hindus. So they don't live other parts of the Pakistan. They are Hindus in other parts of Pakistan, but very minority, right? So in Sindh, majority of the Hindus, they live in Sindh, born, bred there, and they speak Sindhi language, same like my language. I'm born and bred in Sindh among these Hindu people. And the incident which mostly happened in the Bharchundi Sharif, which is near the Ghotki. Ghotki is a district. And I spent several years in Ghotki, near the Bharchundi Sharif. And I know personally Mia Abdul Haq. He was recently sanctioned by the UK government for forced conversion. This person was infamous, very infamous, not now, because of the now media and the social media has, promoted him for these type of heinous crimes of forcing Hindu girls. But he was doing this for decades, even there was no social media, right? And this person is not only, let me, because I born there, I saw this person. My father was a police officer in Ghotki, so we have seen his crimes. He was not only he's a peer, he's a spiritual leader in Sindh, in especially the Ghotki area. This person is not only the peer, he is a father of gangsters. He's a head of the dacoits in the area. Every single crime happens in the region, in the area, in Ghotki. He is the person who sheltered all gangsters or criminals. His shrine, which called is like a sacred shrine, but actually his crime is the hub of the crimes. He sheltered not only the Hindu girls, but he sheltered every single criminal who can, run away from the police from other states or other districts, other areas. He sheltered them. He has a good connection with a Pakistan army. Why? Because of the few only half an hour drive journey from Panu Akal, Kent, army Kent. So his area has come to nearly in the Kent. So army generals often they go visit him because he's a very influential person in the area. Conversion Hindu girls into Islam through this person, Abdul Haq Mia Abdul Haq Mia Mitu, right? Mia Mitu, we know him Mia Mitu in back in days. So Mia Mitu, let me tell you that he's not the only person who's converting people. He just become infamous in the international media and the local media and people and the people who sometimes what happened in Pakistan, some people who have a, for example, I have seen I have a research on this topic as well. I have a still connection in Ghotki and other people in the researchers and journalists. Yes, there are a lot of conversion cases forcefully, but there are some, we can say conversion. Some girls, for example, some girls have some type of love affairs with Muslim guys. So they only get shelter in Mia Abdul Haq's, his shrine. So they run away from their families and they come to the Bharchundi Sharif. And then he, he's very famous to convert the people into the Islam. So they become Muslims. When they present into the court by the police, the girls tell in the court to the judge that, yes, we have converted by our wish, right? So we have to see the different factors as well. Some factors are the very, these caste system in Hindus, like they are Koli, and they are very lowest and Shudra caste, right? They have no any respect in there. So they girls mostly Umarkot. Umarkot area is a very Umarkot, Tharparkar, desert side area that is far from the Ghotki where the Pir Bharchundi lives. Is nearly 8-hour journey. So he cannot send the people to the other area for completely another part of the province and abduct the girls, right? Sometimes they people abduct the girl over there and they send it to him. And he, because he become famous in conversion people, so he convert them into Islam. So what I'm trying to say here, he's not the only culprit. There are every area, every district, there are shrines. There are these Sufi mystic people, Pirs. They are converting people and Muslims, and as well as converting Hindus as well as Christians into the Islam. And the problem is that in Sindh and in Punjab, in Pakistan provinces, laws have been passed against forced conversion. It's not laws not passed. Yes, laws have been passed, but because of the implementation is very hard in Pakistan because of the religious clerics monopoly and political monopoly and influence in the society. So the lawmakers, the police or security service, they are very concerned about taking action, because if they take action, then the public will come and they can attack on the police stations. So this is a big problem in Pakistan. Conversion is a minor 13 and 14 years. We have seen the 13, 14 years Hindu girls, right? They converted forcefully into the Islam.
Annually, correct?
Yes, and which is not in the monopoly of Islam. It's completely against Islam, forcefully conversion into Islam, and it must be stopped, which is very hard at the moment in Pakistan. How the atmosphere is created in Pakistan for the last 3-4 decades after the Afghan war, so it's very hard to stop this practice in Pakistan, unfortunately.
Noor, thank you, Noor. You're raising some very valid points. I do have 2 questions I'm going to revert back to after we get also Utsav gives his introduction. I'm going to actually write them down. We have a few questions coming in too, which is great. Thank you for that. And Utsav, if you could please now, you have 5-minute remarks. Would like to welcome you to the floor as well.
Thank you, Adelle. And this is just fascinating to hear Noor and everybody, Deepti and everybody else, and touch upon this topic. I will basically go into the points that have not been made yet, and because all of you have already covered so much of the conversation. So a few things I just wanted to point out in my introduction. Hindus are the native to the land of Sindh. They have been living in Sindh since the Sindhu-Saraswati civilization, which is a contemporary of the Mesopotamian and the Egyptian civilization. So around 6,000 to 7,000 years back, these are the natives of that land. More than 6,000 years ago, before Pakistan was created. So that's number one point we have to understand. The Hindus form about 2% of Pakistan's population, but in Sindh, they are more than 6-7% of the population. And as Noor pointed out, that's because they have been native to the land forever. And also, one of the reasons why many of the Hindus could not move out in 1947 is because they were just so poor. These were tribal natives, indigenous communities to those lands. They have been treated really badly. In fact, in Pakistan, there are official advertisements for certain types of job that no Muslim is willing to do. So you will see in newspapers cleaning sewers, jobs reserved for Christian and Hindu communities. So that's how blatant the discrimination is in many of these communities. In some of the areas when there is drought, especially in areas like Umarkot that Noor pointed out, it is so dry that many of these clerics actually do not give water to the local communities if they do not convert to Islam. And that is the level of inducement that is often, they will dig wells only in those areas that people are willing to convert. So one more point that Noor pointed out, but I need to further establish, because a lot of our listeners out here are in America and UK. who need to know that Mia Mittu and Burchundi Sharif is just one. There is another place called Sirhind Sharif, which has equally violently and equally aggressively been doing this work. And there are 5-6 other similar institutions across Pakistan that do this kind of forced conversion and kidnapping. There is a bigger problem, and actually Noor directed towards that problem and mentioned it. I just want to elaborate on it further. Pakistan is a country where Islamic Sharia law is promoted. It's not fully applied, but it's promoted. And over the years, there has been an increasing trend towards moving in that direction. So there is institutional discrimination against religious minorities at this point in Pakistan, whether it is electoral law, family law, law of evidence, hudud laws, income, zakat and ushur distribution, a trust and evacuee property law, those who were forced to leave in 1947, domicile law, as well as most importantly, blasphemy law. So these are real concerns. And again, there have been efforts made at the topmost level under international pressure to actually stop these forced kidnapping and forced conversion. In 2016, the Criminal Law Protection of Minority Bill was introduced in the Sindh Provincial Assembly. In November 2019, a federal parliamentary committee actually passed a law. In 24th September 2020, the Senate Standing Committee on Religious Affairs and Interfaith Harmony rejected that law. So what you see in Pakistan is that whatever laws you make, they are not accepted at the national level because there is so much pressure from the entire community. And this is something that we need to be all concerned about globally, that the common people in many places are not interested to offer these religious minorities equal rights. And this is an outcome of decades of radicalization in many of these places, including in the army. And Noor pointed that out very well. Mia Mittu is seen and photographed with Imran Khan, with Nawaz Sharif, with Pakistan People's Party leaders, and with every army general who is worth any value in that area. So the entire establishment, both the military and the civil, is already on the side of the perpetrator. One more point I just wanted to mention, and this is something that is very important. There is no excuse to use Islam, even though it's being used as a reason for these kidnapping and forced conversion. Even today, most countries can easily refer to the 2016 January Marrakesh Declaration that many Arab Muslim countries actually put in practice, declaring that how minorities should be treated in Muslim majority countries. So the Marrakesh Declaration is a very good framework that actually Pakistan should adhere to, that Arab countries, many of them adhere to. And that is something that we should continue to promote and tell leaders across the world that that is not an excuse that Pakistan can use. They can easily move away from using Islam as an excuse. So going forward, what is it that we can do? I think it is important that just like UK put sanctions on Burchundi Sharif and Mia Mittu, there is an effort that is needed to be made globally, where it's not just one institution, but all these institutions are held accountable and sanctioned. And then the Pakistan army and the administration that hobnobs with them will come under the radar, and therefore they will be next. And that message has to be sent very clearly. What does Pakistan respond to positively? Economic sanctions. Pakistan is always in need of money, and because of the tremendous corruption that they do, and every 3 years there is a report on that, and whoever is in power has actually sucked up billions of dollars somewhere else. So every economic aid that goes to Pakistan has to be correlated to the health of the religious minorities, especially the demography of the religious minority in these countries. Numbers do not lie. If everywhere in the world religious minorities are thriving, their numbers are growing. If in Pakistan the numbers are declining, let's look into it. Let's connect it to the economics. And more importantly, people like us, those of us who are listening, people who are participants in this, doesn't matter which faith you are from, but this is about humanity. It is our responsibility to connect with our government and hold them accountable on all the topics I mentioned just now. I'll go from here.
Thank you so much also for your very impassioned and astute remarks, Utsav. I would like to now ask a few questions and open the floor to a few questions from the audience. We have a plethora of questions coming in. First and foremost, I wanted to talk a little bit, revert back to what you said, Noor, You had mentioned that the majority of these clerics are of Sufi Islam, which is very interesting. And you also mentioned that Islam is against forced conversion. Where then, and I open it to Noor and to everyone else who wants to respond, does this practice arise from? What do you think are the origins of this practice? Is it more cultural than religious, for example?
That's right. It's a good question. Yes, culture in Pakistan, specifically as a Muslim country. If you look at the era before General Muhammad Zia al-Haq, right, before 80s, and the era after 80s, look at the laws which were passed by the General Muhammad Zia al-Haq to make the country and nation more Islamized. Okay. In the time of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto Prime Minister, Pakistan was a more secular country. I mean, more secure compared to after the General Zia. I'm not saying fully compared. When Muhammad Ali Jinnah, look at the history, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, founder of Pakistan, created Pakistan, right? Yes, for the Muslim, but not in the name of Islam, for the Muslim. That's why he didn't say the Pakistan is an Islamic Republic of Pakistan. He said it's a Democratic Republic of Pakistan. It was a General Ayub Khan in 1965, before 1965, he declared the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Still, there was a very more secure country. Then Zia, 1980s, when the Afghan Jihad started, they wanted a country to make environment atmosphere with more religiously. So he started Hudud ordinance. He implemented blasphemy laws and declared more pressure to Zia to declare Qadi Ahmadis as a non-believer, declared, and they created an atmosphere, they created a religious organization like a Sapai Sahaba, Jhangvi, Lashkar Jhangvi type of things, so they can declare the Shia even as a kafir, as a disbeliever, infidels. So actually the atmosphere, and plus the political Islamist leaders like Maulana Maududi type of things, you were influenced to Egyptian cleric Sayyid Qutb, he was influenced by the Maududi as well, and then the Osama bin Laden. So actually what I'm trying to say, the atmosphere intentionally created because they knew that the people in Pakistan, they will easily be converted, right, from a secular arena into the political Islamic arena. This is why, and after 80s, it was going forward. Every institute has become politically Islamically corrupt. Right, every institution, whether I can say mosque, whether I can say madrasas, whether I can say educational institutions, military institutions, or judiciary, or political stage, they all become a politically Islamically influenced. Right, so this slowly atmosphere is created. So now the people say, no, it's not Islam. But like if I talk, no, this is not an Islam. When I talk on a different platform, say the blasphemy law is actually against Islamic law. Blasphemy is not allowed in Islam. Killing apostasy, I always condemn apostasy. Killing apostate persons, the person who is converted from Islam to non-Islam, he must not be killed, must not be harmed. And this is Islamically, I can prove it. But in Pakistan, if I say this one, my life will be in danger. Why? Because mostly of the atmosphere created by the political Islam. So I can say generally, in one word, Pakistan is not an Islamic country, but Islamist country, actually.
So what you're saying here, if I'm not mistaken, is that essentially it's the politicization of Islam that has caused for it's I guess you can say politics is downstream from culture, right? So is it the politicization of Islam that has lended itself to this becoming more of a cultural phenomenon than religious? Would that be an accurate assessment?
That's what they all are mixed and now become this as a culture. Now, conversion is not a big problem. It's for maybe but the people in Pakistan living, blasphemy, conversion, apostasy, killing, and these not a big thing for them because they become a part of their culture actually. Right? Killing people, even they are accusing their own Muslim as a blasphemy, they kill them. Do you understand? Forget about minority, forget about non-Muslims. They even accuse one sect, accuse another sect as a blasphemous, and they're going to go and kill them. And there's no any police can't take any action because of the influence of the madrasas and influence of the religious people in the culture of the Pakistani people. Its whole mindset has been corrupted. It's completely had been corrupted. It takes maybe decades to sort it out. So Mr. Chakrabarti, what he said, I completely agree with him that yes, you can't change the mindset quickly, but you have to make a tough rules to implement the punishment, something like sanctions, or like the every aid should be connected with a condition, linked with the condition that if you improve the minorities' rights, then we will aid you. Like this, though they have no any choice to improve minorities' rights religiously or politically, or because they have no freedom in Pakistan, no free speech actually.
Thank you so much for that. I'd like to now go to another question to open up to the audience, and specifically, excuse me, I'd like to know then, with that said, do you think that the average Pakistani is aware that this practice is taking place in their own country?
So I would say that on an average, the Pakistani is quite aware of what's going on. If I were to put a number to it, I would say about 80% of the Pakistanis are aware of what is going on. There is a very nice book on this issue by a person called Madiha. I'm forgetting her last name, but she works at the Brookings Institute, and this book actually does a survey of each and every community in Pakistan in terms of their gesture and their posture towards non-Muslims and towards America and some of the major global powers. And I think if you look at it, the average Pakistani is aware of it. But as Noor pointed out, they have been radicalized. There is a pecking order of who is the holiest of them all. Like a Punjabi Sunni from Islamabad and Rawalpindi area is at the top of that pecking order. And an Ahmadi and a Hindu from Umarkot, Ahmadi from southern Punjab, or a Hindu from Umarkot is at the lowest end of that pecking order. So each one above in that pecking order is willing to do atrocities on the one below him or her in that pecking order. And this is the level of fragmentation that has happened in that society. And this is allowed because of the constant Islamist, jihadist impetus that the Pakistani army has been feeding in a cycle through its society. And that is the reason why I think that majority of the Pakistani society is aware of it, but is not always willing to do something about it. I have to clarify, though, that there are individuals and institutions in Pakistan that have actively worked towards preventing this forced conversion. So that has to be given. You cannot paint the whole country in one color, but those are very few in numbers. Many of them are in Western societies because they are personally in danger when they speak about these issues. And many of them are in urban areas and may not have access to power outside those urban areas.
Thank you for that. And this actually draws me back to your previous point that Noor had mentioned about the fear of actually pushing back, even law enforcement, of trying to step in and crack down on these forced conversions of minorities. Out of the fear of civil society members rising up and attacking them. So big issue. I'd like to now, excuse me, I'd like to know then, that said, I think we answered my next question, which is based on your experience in human rights and in Pakistan, do you see the majority of Pakistani civil society pushing back against this practice? Seems like it wouldn't really be well received due to the fact that they also could be subjected to honor killings. And that's, an incredibly difficult task to have to overcome and to be aware of, to make awareness rise about it. Noor, I wanted to ask you also, since you've done such amazing work in terms of fixing, the perception of Muslims throughout the world and correcting the record where, for example, you mentioned that in, the Quran, it does not accept blasphemy, obviously, and doesn't accept the forced conversion. Being your work that you've done as a bit of an outlier, I'd say, right? If I may, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Do incidents like this Like, for example, the you speaking out about incidents like this, does it make, or incidents like what's going on for conversions in Pakistan, the fact that you're so vocal about the fact that it's a practice that has to be stopped, does it make your job more difficult in carrying out your intended goals and mission at the ITCT?
Well, the actually problem is that I can't go Pakistan.
You can't. Okay.
I cannot go Pakistan
Okay.
because of my life is in danger. I've received direct and indirect threats from certain departments. I don't want to take names. So including religious people and establishment, right? So this is why I try to not endanger my life. Yes, it's difficult. It's difficult that I cannot openly say into local England, into mosque. If I go mosque and they say, no, it's blasphemy, it's out of Islam, something like that, I wouldn't say. I wouldn't dare to say that because I know it. The mind says not only, the problem is the mind says not only Pakistan has been corrupted by the political Islamist leaders, anywhere in the world. Western, if I can compare to UK is a situation more worse, the people in mindset, because they are educated Islamists rather than uneducated Islamists in Pakistan. They people, you might convince them, but here you cannot convince because they have different factors.
It's ideologues, the ideologues, right?
Yeah, they have a different factor because the thing is that Pakistani people are the poor people. They have grown up into, respecting, kissing feet of the mullahs, and whatever the mullahs say, they can't say. But in the UK, the people cannot. Right here is very hard to convince them that no, you are following political Islam. Right. Let me tell you one thing. Back in 20s, I was recruited by the LET. I was trained in Afghanistan by the LET. I was a very prominent member of
if you don't mind,
Lashkar-e-Taiba, right, which is a Jamaat Dawa organization. As I was recruited from Sindh, and I went to Afghanistan. And because I wanted to be, because mindset was it was induced that I have to take a revenge from the Hindus. I have to take a revenge from the Indian army in a fight in Kashmir and to save my, Kashmiri Muslims. This is why it was induced in me. And I wasn't, went to Afghanistan and Pakistani administered Kashmir, trained, my military trained in those areas. And suddenly, thanks God, I was a very educated person. I was not an illiterate person. I was always willing to research and everything. And there incident some happens that changed my mind. I left Afghanistan, back to Pakistan, and start arguing with those people that you are wrong, doing wrong. So after then, in 90s, end of 90, nearly starting before 9/11, I moved to UK, right? So I've seen this, how to manipulate the mindset in Pakistan. Right. And now, because I fully support Israeli stand against Hamas, against Hezbollah, against Islamic terrorist organizations, right? Again, and support Indian Army's stand against terrorists in Kashmir, right? And Israeli Army's action against terrorists in Israel. So yes, I've received a great amount of threats, live threats to me, my family. This is why where I live in the UK, I do not expose anyone where I live it. Still living in the UK, serving 7 years in the London police force, right? Yes, I was a police officer in London 7 years, right? And it's been a few years, I just changed my career. So no, it's not easy. It's not easy. It doesn't matter where you live in the West. Islamists are everywhere. They can be a post threat to your life anytime, anywhere. You are not safe.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's incredible that you also served as law enforcement officer in the UK. So look forward to hearing more about that for sure. I wanted to draw it back now to the UK, and considering your amazing revelation also that they tried to recruit you from Lashkar-e-Taiba. And, back to the topic of the conversation here, right? Where in August, of this year, British Prime Minister, who was recently nominated as Prime Minister, he was sworn in, Rishi Sunak, said that he will not allow for political correctness to stand in the way of tackling the horrific crimes committed by the grooming gangs in the UK. I wanted to ask, since you live in the UK and you're very well aware of the situation there geopolitically, what steps do you think that he will take to deal with this?
Well, I think steps have been taken. They have been imprisoned for very long years, right? The problem as being a former police officer, the problem in the institute and police institute is that we even try very hard, but we cannot protect the victims, sexually victims, right, and women and children, because of three reasons. A, victims don't come in forward. That's a big problem, right? Number two is, if the victim comes, we don't establish enough evidence, because of the UK is a very lenient democracy, which sometimes restrict police officers to even take actions. Very lenient. So many rights have been given to people, and people have misused the freedom of rights in UK, right? Even the US have a bit tough rules. Here, very lenient rules. Rishi Sunak is a very serious person against these kind of grooming gangs, because they have given a very black stand on the society of the United Kingdom, not even the UK, but across the globe, right? And he's talking about he's trying to take this action further, and he wants to implement more tougher rules if anybody arrested by the grooming, sexually assault or grooming the children, right? He will face a very higher consequences and law-wise. But again, it's saying and doing is a big thing. He said, but again, he has to pass laws. There are loopholes in the justice system as well. There is a loophole in a policing system as well. There is a loophole in a community system as well, because there is a big gap between policing and the Muslim community. Muslim community do not trust in the police, right? So there's a big gap. So they have to work very hard to establish the links of the trust between both institutions, Muslim institutions and the government institutions. He's working hard, but the journey is long.
Yeah, this is huge. Yeah. Just to say, trust has been lost in so many different facets of civil society, not only amongst each other from peer to peer, right, but also between the pure government, law enforcement. And it's a really, really very important point you brought up. Thank you for that.
Let me give me one add. UK,
please.
The UK. Think about the mindset. UK mosques. Most of the mosque, like I can say, 70% mosque run by the Muslim Brotherhoods. Can you believe it? Right?
That's very alarming, frankly.
Yes, each organization linked to the Muslim Brotherhood, directly, indirectly, right? One charity organization, they have 300 to 400 Islamic institutions, including madrasas, mosques, community centers, Islamic centers, right? Plus Hizb ut-Tahrir, it have very influence in a institution, educational colleges, schools, and universities, and they have been declared as a terrorist entity in different, mostly Arab countries, even in Pakistan, but they have a very free access in UK, Hizb ut-Tahrir, right? So this is why I was saying that UK is a very lenient country, and this is the consequences we are facing. Islamization is a very high peak, so even a government cannot control it. But this is why the MI6 head, he said a couple of years ago that there are nearly 25,000 Islamists walking among us, but we have only capability to watch only a few thousand. And any one of them will arrest or 20,000 become a potential terrorist. They can't trace them. So that's what I was saying.
Thank you. This just reminds me quickly before I go to the next question. Back when I was a journalist for several years ago, I remember the San Bernardino shooting that occurred. I think it was Tashfeen Malik, and I forgot, that was the wife that was radicalized in Pakistan, actually, and her husband, who was they were both involved in the unfortunate incidents that occurred during Christmas and I believe New Year's. But one of the things that I recalled having reported on was that one of the neighbors, at least, was fearful. They had noticed some sort of suspicious behavior, but they were afraid to report it to the police because they were afraid that it would be viewed as an bigoted anti-Muslim attempt or hate crime. But that's the issue. People who actually see something, it's gotten to the point where it's been politicized and all this stuff about being political correctness, that true threats and true issues, red flags that should be raised to law enforcement are not being raised, and it's resulting in loss of innocent lives.
This is why I raised this one. There's a big mistrust. Like, let me give you one example. Have you heard the name Jihadi John, who slit the Americans?
Yes.
in Syria? Have you seen the Jihadi? Have you heard the Jihadi John 2, Sridhar, Hindu guy who converted Muslim, become a Syrian? Okay, there were two Jihadi Johns, right? One was from north of England, and I saw him personally because he was a busker and I was a police officer working, and I was always kicking out, and he became a Jihadi John. Second Jihadi John, he was from Walthamstow area of the East London.
Siddharth Dhar was his Hindu name.
Siddharth Das, yes, right? So there's Siddharth, that he was my neighbor, right? I was living in one street, he was living in another street, and we always come across. He knows I'm a police officer. I knew he was an Islamist preacher with Anjum Chaudhary. I have a very good conversation, no good conversation, a very bad conversation with Anjum Chaudhary always, right? Now this Siddharth Jihadi John, everyone knew what he's doing in the area, right? No one bothered it. The one person, he was a chicken shop owner, and he was Ahmadi actually. He has only one son. I personally knew his son. He was a little bit mental issue. No, just a little bit. He was recruited, his son, recruited by the Jihadi John and other people who were connected from the Germany, Italy, Sweden, France. These all Islamists have a networking in the UK, and the person was recruited. He was married. He was married to the convert woman from the Europe, and he was sent to the Syria. He has only son. He was sent to the Syria, and there he was killed in battling with with ISIS, right? Battling against Syrian forces. He was continually informing police department what's going on. Nothing will happen. Nothing had happened. And he has only son. The person I used to remember, he hugged me, he cried me, he hugged me and he cried. He said, your police department disappointed. He said to me, your police department lost my son. Because I was continuing in police in a police touch, and he was giving all information to police what his son is doing, where he is going, he is married. This is why they recruit the people. One married, sent to jihadist zone, he killed. The same woman become a widow, then same woman they use it to recruit other people. There's a big networking chain. Even where I was living in Walthamstow, this was a Sharia zone. Can you believe it? After 7 o'clock, no any English or Hindu person walk hand to hand with girls, or they cannot drink. That time I have seen it.
Noor, I'm so happy that you're bringing this up, because back in my former years when I wasn't a journalist, there was a huge debate over these Sharia zones. There was members of the mainstream media that vehemently, ferociously fought against them, said they were a fallacy. And there were other networks that actually were saying that they existed. And there's been a debate. So the fact that you were a police officer at the time and that you actually were in law enforcement and you witnessed them, that's really interesting, because you can go back and reference, I'm sure you've seen the articles that say they do not exist, right? So clearly it's not the case. So thank you for bringing that up.
Sorry, one second. I was getting information from these jihadi, infiltrate as a Muslim in their area and get information from them. And I was passing to police, my department, and my police department called me officer. They say, if you pass next time information, we will kick you out of the police service. You're not trained for, and don't bring any information from the jihadists. That's not your problem.
Fascinating.
Okay, that's fine. And I left the
Thank
police.
you for good for you. You know what? Well, thank you for your service to the people of Great Britain, the UK. Absolutely. You're getting applause. I love it. So I would like to now direct a question before I go to the other question that I have to Deepti. Deepti, I want to see, based on, the fact that you worked so closely on these issues regarding the forced conversions of minority Hindu girls and other minorities, minority faiths in the Sindh region. What response what has the response been, rather, to Chingari in the United States?
So Adele, I will start with myself, right? When I heard about this issue, I have 2 boys. I don't even have a daughter, but just the mere fact of what these girls, just the stories, it just hit me so hard. And I think that is the emotional connection that I have when I talk about this issue with people. The response is because it's at a very human level, whether you are a male or a female, old or young. This is an issue that touches everyone that you talk to. Like how can, in this age and time, in this world where we are living right now, if this is happening to little girls, I mean, it's unacceptable. So the response is just amazing, and it's not just in US. We were able to form a Chingari association in Australia. We have been working with people in UK and Canada. So it's not just a local response. Everybody who hears about this issue, they feel connected at some level. I mean, it's everybody has mothers, daughters, girls somewhere, like it just hits them very hard. And the volunteers, they want to work on this issue. They want to raise voices. We've had multiple vigils across the globe on this Chingari project, so across multiple cities in US and other cities across the globe. So this response is tremendous.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I do hope that the US, Chingari's presence rather in the US and beyond will also expand. Speaking of which, I'd like to actually ask another question as a follow-up to that. So the UK recently imposing sanctions on Pakistan institutions. I'm wondering why the United States has not imposed sanctions on these same Pakistani institutions and individuals in the same manner as the UK just did. I'd like to open it up to whoever would like to respond to that.
So I just wanted to respond to it, and others can join in. So I think what has happened in UK is a much needed first step. There has been multilateral institutions that have been flagging this issue from many countries, but the fact that that President Biden actually called Pakistan the most dangerous country in the world 2 months ago, and the fact that the US State Department put it on the country of particular concern. So we are heading in that direction. So Britain and America, they talk to each other. The foreign ministries of UK and the State Department of US have a lot of communication. The fact that it has been recognized by the Foreign Ministry of United Kingdom, the Foreign Secretary has made a statement in that direction of sanctioning. I think it will be reflected in the US. It is up to us, those of us who are educating people, those who are working towards creating awareness. It's up to us how much we can educate and sensitize people. So as Deepti ji pointed out, Chingari is getting a good response. We will interact and make sure that this is addressed within the United States, and over the next years, we can see some real outcomes in terms of sanctioning these institutions. But more importantly, as I noted in my introduction, Pakistan Army and the institutions that the Pakistan Army controls, they have to be held accountable. If you can hold them accountable, the rest of the things in Pakistan will fall in place.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you a follow-up question also, Utsav. As the executive director of HinduPACT and a vocal critic of Pakistan's national and foreign policy, do you get accused of meddling in Pakistani affairs when you bring up these issues at events or forums or discussions like today's and beyond?
True. That is true. Because look, as a Hindu who was born in India, the first accusation I get is from a Pakistani is like, these Indians are messing with us. So the real issues are never addressed. They will just point a finger and say, hey, he's an Indian. And that is my misfortune. But I also go back and really believe that we were not different people. The people of Sindh and the civilization of Sindh that I just referred to in the initial conversation is the civilization that I hold my theological and cultural adherence to. So what happened 5,000 years ago in Sindh is close to my heart. And to be honest, I love the food in Sindh as well and in Punjab. So I have all the reasons to care about these people. And people can accuse me of, whatever, and I will get accused, I cannot change the place of my birth, but it doesn't change what I think about in terms of my fellow community brethren in any part of the world. It doesn't matter, it's just Pakistan or not.
Thank you so much.
I was vocal about what the Taliban was doing to the Bamiyan Buddhas and to the Sikhs as well. So just to.
No, absolutely. And as a big foodie myself, I can relate. So maybe there's a way to get everyone together, good meals. They can hash out all the differences and find a way to de-escalate the situation. Who's going to cook? No. So I'd like to now open the floor to anyone else. Actually, I'm going to do one final question and then open it up to some closing remarks. And I think that we've had a very, very comprehensive talk here. I look forward to us being able to continue these conversations and expand them to other areas that need attention as well. Ultimately, I just wanted to say today's discussion is focused around really the discussion of the treatment of minorities in countries where Sharia law is practiced, right? I want to know, there's some countries that practice Sharia law, obviously include Pakistan, there's Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, Sudan, Niger, Qatar, and the Islamic State, which is arguably a state or not, a country, depending on which perspective you're looking at. I want to know, though, from everyone here, do you think it's possible for members of minority faiths to receive equal treatment in countries where Sharia law is the overarching or majority law of the land?
In my personal opinion, and I'm not a scholar of Islam, I do not claim to be one, but based on historical information that I have, the Sharia law that is actually practiced in today's Islamic world and the interpretations that I have seen in the past 5 generations of Sharia interpretations, I strongly doubt that religious minorities will have equal rights in many of those countries that practice it. I also think that there were steps taken to correct that. As I mentioned in my speech, the Marrakesh Declaration was a positive step in bringing equality to the religious minorities, but I do not see its implementation as well as it could have been. And we can go back to our entire conversation on why that is the case, but I do not see equal rights for religious minorities under current interpretations of Sharia law.
And Adelle, again, I go back to my personal experiences, just like Utsavji. I am born and raised in India as well before I moved to the US, and I lived in a city where we had both Muslim and like Islamic and Hindu population. And honestly, even back in the days, it's scary to move around in a region where you have more Islamic population. So just going back to that whole thing that can the minorities coexist? It's same in my interpretation of what the international portal looks like today. What we see, it's hard. It's unimaginable. The only thing we can do is strong countries like the strong democratic countries like US and India and others, that the influence that we can bring is all we can hope and pray for.
Thank you so much. And Noor, would you like to also please comment on that, respond?
Right, thank you very much. Well, when I see through the Islamic point of view, I don't see any country I can say is it really truly an Islamic country, a Sharia law, because everyone have their own type of Sharias, right? And both all Sharias are, people are opposing each other, and they are no Islamic Sharia. Anyway, as I said before, 80s, Pakistan was a different. Yes, minorities have more rights than now, because that time minorities were not declared as anti-Islam. Yes, there was a Hindus, and I proud myself that I'm a Sindhi. I born and raised with Hindus in temples, and still there's temples. There was just after Babri Masjid, some incident happened. They attack some temples. Otherwise, it's very safe. Hindus were there, and I proudly say that Hindus living in Sindh, they are. I mean, they established the economy of our Sindh province. They are millionaires. They are icon businesses in Sindh. All businesses, they have strengthened the Sindh economy. They are our Hindu brothers, Sindhis. They are living. I mean, yes, these conversion cases are, but if you look at the cases come from very lower class of people. Some are, is higher ranking, higher class, but mostly Hindus in Sindh, they are very rich, very millionaires, and they have no any problem from the Muslim communities, right? If you look at the now Saudi Arabia, look at the now UAE, completely different now, isn't it? UAE, they have joined Abraham Accords. Right?
Exactly, the UAE has done that. Yes,
they open the synagogues. They are openly opening mandirs, temples, Hindu temples, right? A huge Hindu temples. When I see, I say, wow, this is a coexistence need to be. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, he is really bringing some change, but he knows he can't bring a change suddenly. He slowly bring change. Even the Israelis, I know that my friend, he has become a rabbi of Saudi Arabia, right? So synagogues, they are working on a Jewish community that bring into Saudi Arabia as well. So what I can say, yes, if there's, if there is a democracy like a Pakistan, Bangladesh, other countries, democratic way, then it's hard because they follow the people's opinion. But if there are kingdoms powerful where the one person decide what to do, then I think if the Mohammed bin Salman and the UAE rulers, if they decide, no, we should go to coexistence, in our state should be mandirs. The Hindus freely can practice of religions. Jews have a synagogue, Jews can practice religion. Then I think there is a possibility, because I see now possibility after Abraham Accords. I see the changes. So there is a hope. There is a hope. Yes.
There is hope. So, Noor, according to what you're saying, and this is an area I work in very closely, is the cryptocurrencies. It seems that the solution to all these problems is wealth and wealth creation generation, because no one discriminates when you're wealthy, as you just indicated, right? All the problems seem to disappear that existed before. So that's one way to help governments.
And the problem is Pakistan. The problem is, unfortunately, Pakistan is the majority share of the wealth is in the hand of the army generals. That's the only country. There's the only country where army generals are billionaires, not in rupees, in dollars. Right?
I see. Okay, there you go. That's interesting. That's a much higher value set.
One general, he's not even the full general, he's a lieutenant general retired. Some money was shown in the world. He has a 99 franchise of Papa John's pizza all around the world. He never been a 4-star general. He never been the chief of army staff. He was just a spokesperson of the army ISPR's head. And he become wealthiest. So he has a 99 franchise of international pizza, Papa John in the world. Now think about journals in Pakistan, and I have all list of their wealth. They are billionaires in the world. Billionaires.
But I will also add this, if I may, just to play devil's advocate here, right? What I said, I do stand by saying that, you know, when there is a certain level of wealth, people tend to turn a blind eye to issues that existed before that they cared about so much. But Osama bin Laden is another exception to that case, right? Where he came from a family. So there are, I would say it's a mixed bag, but I love that we're discussing this here. And the fact that you brought up and prompted the Abraham Accords as a very, very important step forward in terms of hopefully disseminating and dissolving the issues that have existed for thousands of years. There is hope. And I think that hope is the very thing that we need to hold on to, because if you lose hope, what else do you have left? So truly, truly grateful to you, to Utsav, to Deepti, to our guests today, to Christine, who had to leave early, and of course to Ellie Gold, who was so gracious enough to open this room to today's discussion, to the Gold Institute. Deepti, excuse me, if you'd like to also add a comment before we close off for the afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, Adelle. And I just wanted to compliment Mr. Noor for all his, the things that you've shared. It's very, very brave. And if you don't mind, I just have one question, because we go back to our topics about the girls, right? The minority girls issues.
Absolutely.
Noor, just since you've been so upfront, I had a question, like, if I'm a Hindu, if I hear some kind of vices in our community or something that is happening, I would make sure that I do something about it. So what is the reaction of women in Islam towards this issue that they see around themselves? Like, it's a women issue, right? It's a girls issue. It should be sensitizing them as well. So is there any reaction from the women in Islam? We cannot hear you, Noor. You're on mute.
Okay, thank you very much, Deepti. Let me say you one thing. Women in Pakistan, the problem is that the forced marriage is not only, only the Hindus or Christians are victims, but most forced marriage victims are Muslims themselves, the women in Pakistan. Okay, so they are fighting for their survival as well. There are organizations which runs by women's organization like Chakrabarti said, and they are not only working against a forced marriage of only for Muslims, but Christians as well, and the Hindus as well, because woman is a woman, and they feel the pain of the forced marriage, because that's a very close bond, and they cannot be create with force or any fear, right? So the problem is Pakistanis, women are oppressed, right? It's a very, very, very influence made society, which are people are sometimes very confused whether they are secular or they actually are religious. Very, very secular. When they turn into the religious fanatic, no one knows that. Okay, because they are secular, but they are somewhere in the back. There's extremism. When they come out against Hindus, against India, against the Jews or Israel, we never know that. Okay, so yes, there are people, there are women, they are working for that. There's organizations, NGOs, they're really working, and women's really, because that's a big issue for women actually, Deepti, unfortunately, right? Under the umbrella of Islam. This is why I always say this is a black stain on our religion by these clerics, Islamist clerics, Sufi clerics. Not every Sufi, but those who hold the shrines and their own religious monopoly they created. I'm talking about those, not all Sufis, right? So I, as being a Muslim, I'm fighting within Islam against Islamists, right? We are the more victims in other communities. So it's not your war, it's actually our war as well. But if we type of people don't come forward, then this, these clerics who have hijacked my identity as Islam, they will be all multiply and influence, not in Pakistan, even in your India. even in your India, there is a big problem is Islamist created, right, in the Western countries as well. So I think people should come forward. Muslims should come forward because it's their problem. Their identity has been hijacked, right, by Islamist thugs. So they should come along with communities like Hindus, Christians, Jews, work together, like Chakrabarti says, is a question of humanity, not a religious. Religion comes to secondary, humanity. So I think all humans, doesn't matter from what caste, what religion, what country, they come to unite to save the humanity. Deepti, that's the issue.
Thank you so much for saying that so eloquently. And I just want to point out something you stated. The first victims of radical Islam are Muslims themselves, and we saw that most prominently displayed with the Daesh and Islamic State. So thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for everything that you do for everyone here, all of your efforts. And trustfully, the situation in Pakistan with the minority girls will be able to be resolved very soon with the help of humanity, the international community coalescing, joining together, and we will continue to ensure that that does become a reality. And I want to wish everyone a wonderful rest of your afternoons. Thank you for joining us at the Gold Institute for International Strategy. And you can find us at www.goldiis.org and follow us on Twitter at Gold Institute IS. Again, I'm your host and media fellow, Adelle Nazarian, and we'll see you soon.